I'm not really the kind of person who leaves reviews or comments on missing persons cases. I don't do Reddit threads or Facebook rabbit holes. But I used to work for the NPS, and I've seen enough weirdness in the backcountry to know when something doesn't line up. In 2020, I helped catalog old lost and found gear near a chain of glacial lakes up in Washington, part of an old ranger station cleanup project after the area was decommissioned. We were just supposed to bag up and tag what was left behind. Bare canisters, weather-damaged tents, shredded tarps, maybe the occasional stove or food cache. No detective work. No questions. But I found something I couldn't stop thinking about. It was a black dry bag, duct-taped closed, deep in the brush between two campsites about 11 miles off-trail, wedged under a fallen log. Inside was a GoPro, 2 backup batteries, and a broken mount. That alone wasn't unusual. What was unusual was that the footage wasn't water-damaged. And the guy in the videos? He was talking directly to it, like he knew no one else was going to hear him unless they found this. His name was Jamie. According to a label on one of the dry bag straps, Jamie K. Solo paddle trip August 2019. And over the course of 5 days, 5 documented, unnarrated days, I watched this man slowly lose his grip on reality in a place I've hiked dozens of times. Let me back up. The trailhead that leads to the upper chain isn't exactly popular, especially once you get past the 5th lake. Beyond that, there's no formal trail. It's just route finding across boulders, deadfall, and the occasional game path. Most people don't go out that far unless they're serious about solitude or doing some hardcore field work. Jamie was solo kayaking. I pieced together his route based on the file names and timestamps, each lake labeled in Sharpie on a dry erase board he'd hold up before hitting record. Pretty smart. Day 1, he films himself unloading the kayak from the roof of his Subaru. Bright blue old town. Weather looks decent. Says something about getting away from everything and needing to clear his head. Day 2, he's paddling the 2nd lake, talking about an eagle he saw and laughing about almost flipping his kayak over a submerged log. Super chill, total Pacific Northwest vibes. He ends the clip with, "Haven't seen another soul yet." That's when things start to turn. On day 3, the tone shifts. He's filming from inside his tent, zipped up tight. You can hear wind whipping outside. He's whispering now. "There's someone else out here," he says. "Didn't see them, but I heard them talking. It was late. Thought it was just echoes at first, but they said my name." The camera shuts off. On day 4, he doesn't talk much. He shows his paddle route, but there's a tension in the way he films. He keeps glancing over his shoulder. A few times he zooms into the tree line, but there's nothing there. In one clip, he paddles hard toward shore after hearing something behind him on the water. You can't see it, just the splash and the way his breath speeds up. Later that night, there's another tent shot. His face is pale, sweaty, eyes wide. Something's wrong with this place. I tried using my compass. It spins. Dead spins. And the echoes, he trails off, then points the camera to the side of the tent. You can clearly hear a voice. Not clear enough to make out words, but unmistakably human. Just outside the tent. Low and repetitive. Like chanting. Jamie doesn't go outside. He just waits. Next clip, daylight. He's filming the fire pit, muttering that someone moved his gear. I know I didn't put the stove there. Or the fuel can. They were by the log. Now they're inside the pit. He sounds more confused than scared now, trying to rationalize. Then he flips the camera around and says something I'll never forget. I keep hearing my voice out here. He says it like someone admitting they might be sick. Like he knows it sounds crazy, but also like he's not sure he's wrong. He points toward the edge of the lake and adds, "Just now. I heard myself yell. From the woods. But I was sitting right here." Then the camera shuts off again. Day 5 is the last set of clips. He looks like he hasn't slept. His hands are shaking. The camera is crooked and blurry, like he set it on a rock. He's pacing, frantic. Keeps looking behind him. "Please. Someone. Just say something back," he whispers. Then louder, "Hello." No response. Just the wind. Then, suddenly, his own voice echoes back from the woods. Not the one yelling hello. A different phrase. Just say something back. Same words. Same tone. Same rhythm. He freezes. Looks toward the tree line. "That's not funny," he says. "That's not funny, man." He grabs the GoPro, starts walking fast down the shore, then cuts the video. That's the last recorded footage. I reported the bag to my supervisor and filed the chain of custody paperwork like I was supposed to. But I wasn't ready to let it go. I checked missing persons bulletins from the summer of 2019. Cross-referenced hikers and campers in that area. One report matched. Jamie Keller, age 33. Disappeared August 2019. Last seen by a gas station clerk 60 miles west of the trailhead. His car was eventually found abandoned off a logging spur, parked neatly. Kayak straps in the trunk. No signs of a struggle. No reported injuries or mental health concerns. The official record says presumed drowned. But we never found his body. Never found his tent. Not even a paddle. Just that bag, with those tapes, in a part of the brush that no one had any reason to search. We marked it as a closed incident. No foul play suspected. But here's the thing. I've been to those lakes. I've camped out there. I know how sound carries across the water, how voices bounce strangely off rock faces and come back warped. It's disorienting, sure. But this was something different. And one last detail still haunts me. In that final clip, just before it cuts off, right after Jamie hears his own voice repeat that line from the woods, he looks dead at the camera. And he says, that wasn't an echo. Then he turns his head and smiles at something off-screen. Like someone had finally said something back. I never thought a seasonal maintenance gig with the Forest Service would lead to something I'd still be thinking about years later. It was supposed to be simple. Clean out an old remote-use cabin that hadn't been touched in over a decade. Pack out trash, check the foundation, catalog anything salvageable before demolition crews came in. The cabin sat at the end of a spur trail in Olympic National Forest, about 6 miles from the nearest road, with no formal campsite around it anymore. It used to be a resting point for long-distance hikers doing the northern loops before modern shelters were built farther in. They'd left it unlocked for years. One of those take-only memories, leave-only footprints kinds of places. I hiked in alone, like I'd done dozens of times before for similar jobs. Weather was decent. Had a 45-pound pack with cleaning supplies, tools, and an overnight setup. The cabin itself was smaller than I expected, 12 by 12 with a rusted tin roof, 2 broken windows, and a dry rot smell that hit as soon as I opened the door. But it was what I found inside that stayed with me. On a shelf near the front wall, under a layer of rodent droppings and dust, I found a canvas-bound trail log. The kind hikers leave notes in. I've seen dozens before. Little journals people use to mark their time, leave messages for others, or just jot down thoughts after long days on the trail. This one looked different. The edges were brittle. The cover had been scribbled over in Sharpie. Campsite 8 log, 2003 to 2012. Out of curiosity, I flipped it open. The entries started off normal. People leaving trail names. Blister Queen, August 12, 2003. Rained all day but finally made it here. Saw elk. Or Team Go-Go, June 6, 2005. Shelter is in rough shape. Fire ring needs love. Still better than bugs. Lots of that. The entries were sparse by 2009. After that, only a few people a year even mentioned the place. Makes sense. Usage was declining, and eventually they removed it from official maps. But then came 2012. That's where things started to get strange. There were 3 entries that week. 3 separate groups. All dated within a 6-day span in late July. The first was from a couple, names listed as Maren plus Jess. Long day, but finally found the old cabin. Spooky but cool. We heard someone walking nearby, just after sundown. Figured we weren't alone out here. Someone in jeans and a ball cap walked by, but didn't say anything. Thought it was a ranger? Seemed weird. No hello or anything. He just passed by in the trees and left. Slept with the hatchet close LOL. The next entry was 3 days later, signed by Alex, Neil, and JP. This place is eerie. Got in late. Saw a guy just standing off the trail as we approached. Jeans, blue baseball cap, staring but didn't move. Thought it was a joke or something, but he never came closer. Later, we heard walking around the cabin. No one answered when we called out, hoping it was just another hiker messing with us. Then the last one, dated 2 days after that. Just a single name, Tyler, with a question mark next to it. The handwriting was shaky, barely legible. Saw the man in the cap again. He was just outside at dusk. Didn't come in. Sat against the tree. I think he followed me from the river. I packed up, but it's dark now. We'll leave at first light. Don't feel right sleeping here anymore. That was it. No more entries. The last dozen or so pages were blank. I checked the back for more writing. Nothing. Just brittle paper and a couple dead spiders. I tried to rationalize it at first. A local messing around. Some backwoods creep who got a kick out of spooking hikers. It wouldn't be the first time. But here's the thing that got me. All three groups, unrelated, different handwriting, described the same exact man. Jeans, blue cap, silent, watching. None of them wrote anything after the night they saw him. None signed out. That wasn't normal. Most log entries include something when people leave, even just a headed to junction or made it to the ridge. These stopped cold. I started checking around the cabin more carefully after that. Under the bunks, behind the stove, around the perimeter, I found scraps of plastic wrappers, an old pocket knife, and what looked like a balled-up sock half buried under the porch boards. But no sign anyone had been there recently. No extra footprints. No gear. Nothing human. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling someone had been here, and not long ago. That night, I stayed inside, even though I usually prefer a tent. I kept the door latched and my flashlight in hand. At some point around 1 or 2 a.m., I thought I heard a footstep outside. Just one. No wind. No animals rustling. Just the crunch of something on dried pine needles. I held my breath for a long time, waiting for a follow-up sound that never came. The next morning, I packed fast. Took photos of the logbook pages with my phone, just in case. I reported the entries to my supervisor when I got back to the ranger station. He shrugged and said there were always weirdos in the woods. Probably just some local trying to scare people off his campsite. But here's what still sticks with me. I filed a follow-up request to see if there had been any incident reports in that zone in late July 2012. Injuries, missing hikers, bear sightings, anything. It came back clean. No SAR calls. No reports of distress. No evidence anyone ever left that cabin that week. And a few months later, when the demo team went out to tear it down, they found nothing inside. The logbook I'd turned in was gone. Vanished from the equipment shed where we'd stored it. I asked twice, but no one knew what I was talking about. I still have the photos on my phone. I don't show them around much. But sometimes, when I zoom in on the last page, the one signed Tyler, I can't help noticing something in the upper corner of the image. A faint smudge that looks like fingerprints, pressed into the paper, like someone was holding the page down from the other side. I'll never go alpine climbing with just one partner again. Not after what happened in the Sawtooths that July. It was supposed to be a 5-day trip, me and my climbing buddy, Nate, summiting a few lesser-known peaks in Idaho's backcountry. We trained for it, mapped the approach routes, logged our itinerary with the ranger station, and packed light but solid. Weather forecast was dry, we were both experienced, and neither of us were green to remote bivvies or sketchy ridgelines. The plan was, hiking along Iron Creek, set up base camp near an alpine tarn above 8,000 feet, hit 2 peaks on day 2 and 3, then descend the other side of the ridge to loop out. Total solitude. No service, no contact. That's what we wanted. For the first day and a half, it went exactly like that. Quiet. Starkly beautiful. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. We set up camp on a shelf overlooking a narrow basin. The spot was almost too perfect. Flat ground, boulder windbreak, clear access to water. We were in good spirits, taking GoPro footage, cooking on a jeb oil, just enjoying the escape. But on the second evening, Nate came back from a short solo hike down toward a ravine and said, "I found something weird." At first, I thought he meant animal tracks or maybe a deadhead. But when he showed me, yeah, it was weird. We followed the contour of the ridge about a quarter mile from our site. Tucked in a small wash between granite slabs was what looked like a shredded tent. Bright orange, faded and sun-bleached. The rainfly had been half buried under scree, and most of the poles were snapped. No sign of sleeping gear. No stove. No bear can. Just the tent and a couple torn nylon straps. There were slash marks in the fabric, long, uneven, fraying at the edges. They didn't look like claw marks, though Nate jokingly said, maybe a mountain lion got pissed. But I wasn't laughing. The rips were angled in a way that looked deliberate. And when I flipped over part of the tent body, I found a bent spoon and a cracked lens from a pair of sunglasses. That was it. The weirdest part? No sign of weathering around the tent. No moss, no animal sign, no wear on the cloth. Like it had been put there recently, then left. We debated whether to report it when we got back. Maybe a solo hiker bailed on their setup mid-emergency. Maybe someone got hurt and it got missed in SAR sweep. But the whole thing felt off. Too clean in some ways, too violent in others. That night, I woke up around 2:30 a.m. to the sound of crunching gravel. At first, I thought it was Nate getting up to piss. But when I unzipped the tent and looked out, his sleeping bag was still zipped shut beside me. The sound stopped immediately. I froze. I didn't see anything. Just moonlit rocks and the tree line far below. But I swear I felt someone watching. That stupid, instinctive prickling in the back of your neck you can't shake. I waited maybe 10 minutes before zipping the tent shut again. I didn't say anything to Nate in the morning. Didn't want to mess with the vibe. Later that day, our second summit was cut short. About halfway up, Nate's altimeter watch started glitching, just spiking random elevation numbers 15,000, 4,100, 22,000 completely off. He laughed it off, but it was weird. He'd calibrated it the night before. We reached the top and took photos, but I could tell he was distracted. When we got back down, he finally asked, "You didn't hear that last night, did you? Like, footsteps?" I looked at him. "Yeah, I did." He nodded slowly and didn't say anything else for a while. That night we kept our headlamps ready. No fire. No talking. Every crunch of rock outside the tent made my heart stop. Once or twice, I thought I saw a flashlight flicker up on the far ridge, just for a second. But I couldn't be sure. I wasn't going to risk wandering to check. The final morning, we packed up fast. Neither of us said it out loud, but we both wanted to be out of there. We chose to descend a different way down an old goat path that intersected a low saddle and cut time off the return. Less scenic, more direct. That's where the last thing happened. About an hour into the descent, Nate pulled out the small two-way radio we kept for emergencies. We'd been scanning channels sporadically in case we picked up chatter from other climbers. Totally dead until that point. Then, from channel 5, a voice came through. Faint. Male. Not a ranger. It said, "You shouldn't have touched the tent." That's it. No call sign. No background noise. Just that sentence. We both stopped cold. Nate slowly turned the volume down and shut it off. Neither of us responded. We just kept moving. Here's what I know for sure. We never announced our route. We never saw another person. And that shredded tent was not on any incident report when I filed our trip return. I asked around, rangers, dispatch, even checked online. Nothing matched. I still think about that voice. Could have been a coincidence. Could have been a prank. Maybe a signal bounce or someone screwing around with a ham radio. But the voice sounded close and calm, like they weren't guessing, like they knew exactly who we were. I was about 6 weeks into my Pacific Crest Trail hike when this happened. It was late July, and I was crossing a particularly dry section in Northern California, a long, exposed ridge with minimal shade, zero water for miles, and almost no escape from the sun. It was the kind of stretch where hikers start to ration water a little too tightly and underestimate the mental exhaustion of endless scrub and rock. I'd been mostly hiking solo at that point. I'd met other thru-hikers early on, camped with a few groups here and there, but by NorCal, everyone starts moving at their own pace. You're either too fast for the bubble or too slow for it. I was somewhere in between. It was the third day of the ridge walk, and I remember it being brutally hot. My shoes were holding up, but my water filter had been giving me trouble, and I was down to a liter with 8 miles to the next reliable source. That's when I saw the van. It was parked off a fire road maybe 100 yards below the trail, tucked behind some junipers. A dusty, beat-up white Sprinter with a solar panel bolted on top. As I got closer, I noticed a big blue cooler sitting on a fold-out table, and next to it, a hand-painted sign propped against a rock. Trail magic ahead, free water, fruit, chips. It felt like a gift from God. When I got to the turnout, a guy stepped out from the driver's side, smiling. Maybe late 30s, lean build, wearing cargo pants and a sun hat. Looked a little too clean to be a thru-hiker, but not completely out of place either. He waved and said, "You're the first one I've seen today." Not surprised, I said. Nobody's dumb enough to hike this stretch in the middle of the day. He laughed, offered me a folding chair in the shade, and cracked the cooler. Inside was water, tons of it. Bottled, sealed, ice cold. Apples. A few mini bags of chips. A small first aid kit. It was a full-on trail angel setup. "You got a trail name?" he asked. I told him what it was. He smiled like he recognized it. Said he'd been driving up and down the area looking for hikers to support. I asked if he used to hike the trail himself, and he nodded. Said he did it years back, before Instagram turned it into a parade. We talked a bit, swapped trail stories. Nothing felt off. I was just grateful for the water and shade. I stayed maybe 30 minutes, topped off my bottles, and thanked him. He smiled again and said, "Safe travels. Be careful up there. Heat's making people see things." I remember that line. I waved and started hiking again. The trail switched back up for another mile, and at the top I paused to look back. The van was still there. But now it looked like he was packing up, folding the table, tossing the cooler in the back. I didn't think much of it. About an hour later, I stopped in a patch of shade to take a break. That's when I noticed something strange. Tucked in the mesh side pocket of my pack, where I kept wrappers and trash, I found a folded piece of paper I didn't remember putting there. I thought maybe it was a note from another hiker. Sometimes people leave encouraging stuff, quotes, jokes, little doodles. But when I opened it, my stomach turned. It just said, "You don't need to keep walking. We'll cross paths again." No name. No handwriting I recognized. No smiley face. Just that one line in dark blue ink. I tried to stay calm. Tried to convince myself it had been there earlier and I just hadn't noticed. Maybe some well-meaning weirdo left it at a trailhead days ago and it got jammed in the pocket. But I'd cleaned that pocket that morning. I was sure of it. The more I thought about it, the more my mind kept going back to the guy with the van. He'd asked my trail name. He'd waited until I was relaxed and distracted. He could have easily slipped the note in when I went to grab snacks from the cooler. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Probably a dumb prank. I didn't want to overreact and ruin what could have just been a kind gesture. But that night, I camped off trail. Tucked myself behind some rocks a quarter-mile away from the marked tent site. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't post it on Far Out or leave any marker. Just slept with my headlamp in hand and my bear spray next to my face. The next day was quiet. I didn't see another hiker. No cars, no people. But late that afternoon, I started feeling like I was being watched. I'd hear footsteps behind me, then stop to listen, and nothing. Once or twice I thought I saw movement off to the left in the trees, like a shadow ducking behind a stump. I told myself I was being paranoid. But then I found the wrapper. It was the same kind of mini chip bag the guy had given me. The same flavor I'd taken, sour cream and onion. Sitting on the side of the trail, upright, like someone had set it there. I hadn't littered. I knew that. And that night, when I stopped to camp, I hiked an extra 2 miles off trail again. Found a secluded spot in a ravine and kept my camp cold. No fire, no noise. Around 1 a.m., I woke up to a faint sound I'll never forget. It was the soft, unmistakable click of a lighter. Not a twig, not a branch, a metal lighter. Flicked once, then again. Close, maybe 50 yards away. I didn't move. Just lay there, breathing through my nose, heart pounding like a war drum. No footsteps, no voices, just those clicks. Once, twice, and then silence. I packed up in the dark and started hiking by headlamp. I hiked 5 hours straight through the early morning until I hit a ranger road. From there, I hitched into the nearest town and paid for a motel room, the first one of the trip. The front desk guy must have thought I was strung out. I locked the door, pushed a chair against it, and slept with one eye open. When I calmed down, I thought about reporting it. But what would I say? A guy gave me free snacks and a creepy note? Someone might have flicked a lighter outside my tent. It wasn't exactly actionable. No plates, no photos, nothing specific. I kept hiking after that, but I changed my behavior. Stopped using my trail name. Stuck close to groups. Avoided trail angels entirely. I finished the trail in September, but the feeling never fully left. Then, 2 months later, I saw something online that made my skin crawl. Someone on a PCT forum posted a picture of a van they'd seen repeatedly near Cascade Locks. It was a white Sprinter, same shape and model as the one I remembered. The post asked if anyone else had been approached by a guy offering free trail magic. Most comments were casual, "Nice dude," or "Gave me a banana." But one reply, buried at the bottom, stuck with me. Same guy gave me water in NorCal. He asked if I was hiking alone. When I said no, he looked disappointed. Also, when I passed the van again later that week, he wasn't in it. But the passenger door was open and he'd written my trail name in Sharpie on the inside dashboard. No one followed up. No one found the guy. The post was deleted within days. But I still remember what that note said. "We'll cross paths again." So I don't tell people my trail name anymore. And I never, ever stop for trail magic when I'm alone. This happened in late September of 2021 in the Catskills. I'd taken a few days off work and decided to spend a long weekend solo camping. I've done plenty of solo trips, usually 3 or 4 days max, nothing extreme, just long hikes, a quiet fire, and the kind of silence you can't get anywhere near people. I chose a spot about 7 miles out from the trailhead, a lightly trafficked ridgeline near Panther Mountain. I knew the terrain, had a topo map and offline GPS, and brought plenty of food in layers. The weather was dry and crisp, the leaves were just starting to turn. It was about as perfect as the Catskills get. I made camp on the first night along a bluff that overlooked a tree-choked valley. Set up my tent, got a fire going, made tea, and just watched the light fade over the ridge. It was dead quiet, no wind, no bugs, just the occasional crack of a branch settling somewhere below. I didn't see another hiker the whole day, until the second night. I'd just finished dinner, freeze-dried chili, and some trail mix, and was sitting by the fire when I heard movement coming from the trail. I assumed it was wildlife until I saw a figure come into view through the trees. A man, mid-30s maybe, carrying a smaller pack than I would have expected this far out. His jacket was dirty and zipped to the neck. No trekking poles. No visible tent or sleeping bag lashed to the outside of his pack. Just a rolled-up tarp and a water bottle. He raised a hand and said, "Hey." I said hey back, automatically. He asked if he could sit down by the fire for a minute. Said he'd been walking since early morning, hadn't stopped much, and was low on water. He seemed calm, not twitchy or wild-eyed, just tired. I said sure. Offered him my extra mug to fill from the pot of water I had heating up. He took it, sat across from me, and held his hands out toward the fire. We made small talk. Trail conditions. Weather. I asked where he was heading. He gave a vague answer. Just bouncing around. No real route. That's not totally unheard of, especially with experienced hikers. Still, something felt underdefined. He didn't offer a name. I didn't either. After maybe 20 minutes, I figured he'd move on or start setting up somewhere nearby. But instead, he just stayed. Even after the water was gone, even after the fire died down to coals, he sat there. Not really talking anymore, just kind of being there. It was dark now. I said something like, "You got a spot picked out for the night?" He said, "Nah, I'll probably just crash right here." I blinked. "At the fire ring?" "Yeah," he said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't want to be rude or make it a confrontation. Technically, the land was public, and he had every right to camp nearby. But there was an etiquette to this kind of thing. You don't just plant yourself in someone's camp without asking. I said, "All right, well, I'm gonna turn in." He just nodded, didn't move. I left the coals burning low and zipped into my tent. I didn't sleep much. Every time I drifted off, I'd wake up and strain to hear movement outside. I never heard him leave. Around 1 a.m., I sat up and checked through the mesh window. He was still there, sitting upright, staring into the embers. I finally dozed off sometime before dawn. When I woke up, he was gone. No sign of him. Not a footprint. Not a tarp. Just the mug, rinsed and left upside down on a rock. I figured that was it. Weird, but harmless. Maybe he was just burned out. Maybe he'd bushwhacked from somewhere and didn't feel like explaining his plan to a stranger. I tried to brush it off, but then it happened again. That evening, my third night, I was sitting by the fire again when I felt that shift in the air. That strange sense that something's behind you before you hear it. I turned, and he was standing at the edge of camp. Same jacket, same pack, same guy. No hello this time. He just stepped into the firelight and looked around like he'd been here before. I said, "Hey, everything all right?" He nodded, then sat down in the same spot. Didn't ask this time. Just sat. No mug. No small talk. No pretense. He watched the fire. I watched him. I asked, "You heading out in the morning?" He shrugged. "Not sure. Might stick around." I tried to keep my voice casual. "You camped nearby last night?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I was close." That was it. I stood up, walked over to my bare hang, and pretended to fiddle with it. I wanted him to see I wasn't entirely passive. I didn't like the vibe anymore. Not even a little. Back at the fire, he was still watching me. Not in a menacing way, but blank. Like I was a TV screen that had stopped showing something interesting. I told him I was turning in early again. He didn't reply. I left the fire burning a little hotter that night. Kept my knife inside the tent. Woke up constantly. Every time I peeked out, I saw the silhouette of a man, upright and motionless, backlit by the low flame. He never once lay down. By morning, gone again. But this time, I noticed something different. The small circle of pine needles where I'd left my water filter disturbed. Not much. Just a slight shift in the dirt, like something had been picked up and put back down. I checked the filter. Everything was intact, but it rattled now. When I opened it, I found a pebble inside. Small, round, like it had been tucked there on purpose. No reason for that pebble to be there. I packed up camp within the hour. Didn't even eat. Just slammed down a Cliff Bar and started moving. On the way back down the trail, I stopped to sign out at the trailhead register, the same logbook I'd signed on the way in, noting my destination, solo status, and expected return. And on the same page, above my name, a new line had been added in thick, shaky handwriting. Shared fire. Nice guy. No name. No date. Just that. I checked the pages before and after. Nothing like it. I didn't file a report. What would I say? A guy sat by my fire and didn't talk enough? I don't know what he wanted. I don't know if he was harmless or if I got lucky. But ever since then, I follow one rule. I don't camp alone if I can't see the road by morning. And if someone walks into my site after dark, I don't start a fire.